Welcome back, ladies and gents, to another TPM Tactical video. Today's video is based on some personal observations from messages that I've received from the community where people either they don't understand exactly how this is working to figure out the mistakes they've made or just where to actually start. Obviously, I've got a few videos out there showing how to do like your vehicle configurations in relation to your entity catalog, your arsenal entity catalog, etc. And they've helped people out. But I'm trying to just help create this video to kind of bring bring that information together, and so you can see the complete flow of how it goes from your, let's say, item entity catalog, so your arsenal, into your faction config, and then into your faction manager, which is what is used in game to give you the factions that are available. So this is not an in-depth flowchart. It's just covering some of the basics. You could expand this dramatically, linking everything together, and I'd be there forever trying to make a flowchart on how it all works. Firstly, I'd need to understand how everything links together before I could do such a video. But hopefully this will help the community. And yeah, if you do have any questions about it or questions on other tutorials you'd like to see, leave it in the comments below. Hit that like and subscribe if you're enjoying these videos. Otherwise, let's jump on in. So I've created a faction. I've created a project called Flowchart Video, and I've just created a world in here, very basic conflict scenario where it's just automatically propagated everything down from the plugins that you run, the game mode plugin. So if we have a look in here, we have a few different managers that it creates. So SCR AI world, this here is your nav mesh. So if I bring up my flowchart, over here on the right hand side, the soldier, BTR-like, and low res, these nav meshes, so the NMN, so November Mike November files, link into your SCR AI world. That enables the AI to know where they're traveling, where the roads are, where obstacles are, trees are, houses, so they're not running into it. If you do see an AI that's running into particular trees, it's running into a building, there's something wrong with the nav mesh, either that hasn't been updated or you've added something down in your mission and it's not covered. You haven't generated your own nav mesh to account for those extra obstacles, whatever else you've added in the terrain. So in here, where's it gone? Not here. So you have three different sections, nav mesh, world components, sorry, and each three of these point to a different nav mesh. So you have this one here, your low res. Sorry, that one's actually your soldier. This one here is your BTR-like, which is your vehicles, and then this one here is your low res. And each one of them point to a different nav mesh. If I click on these three dots, you can see under Arma Reforger Worlds, MP multiplayer nav meshes, and I'm using this particular one's island map. So CTI, so capture the island, campaign being conflict, island nav mesh, the island underscore vehicles, your BTR-like one, and then just your low res island. So that's where those three nav meshes link into your SCR AI world. The next up, what we got, perception manager, not going to go into that. Game mode, campaign, that probably needs to be a whole video just on itself, going through all those settings. So I'm not going to worry about that because you can just go through and check each one, tick and flick, and see what works, what doesn't work for what you're trying to create. Military base, not worrying about that, not worrying about that. Loadout manager, let's have a look at the loadout manager. So in here you have different loadouts. This is what you'll see when you first log into the game. So when you launch your game, you go to select a faction, and then after that you'll see the loadouts. So campaign, US player, ET being your prefab, USSR, and then a couple other ones in relation to your save loadouts. So here, if we click on this little magnifying glass, it will point to where the file's located, so the prefab's located within the resource, within the structure. If I open this back up here again, so you can see here's your loadout manager. From here, examples of these prefabs, so your campaign underscore US underscore player, points goes into your loadout manager. And in here you have actually lots of other components, but we're just going to look at the uniform, weapon, ammo, and miscellaneous items. They will go into this, into your actual prefab. So if I follow this again, here it is. So I'm just going to right click and override into flowchart project, just so that you can see how this links together, just so I can edit it. So inside here, I'm not going to go into detail on how to modify this. I do have a video on creating some default loadouts, which you can have a look at. So again, a lot of this, if you don't need to touch it, you don't touch it unless you know what you're doing or you want to muck around and learn. For example, the character or weapon slot component, this here shows you the weapon that that character has, The base loadout manager has all your uniform, your helmet, etc. SCR inventory storage manager has all your different components, that's not components, your different like radio items, miscellaneous items, ammo, etc. So these all go inside your character prefab. These here go in your character prefab. That character prefab, now I've got to load back into the world editor. Character prefab points into your loadout manager here, and then when you load in game, that's the loadouts you can select. So hopefully that makes sense. Let's move along to the faction manager. So in here you can see we have the SCR campaign factions. So USSR, US, FIA. So the basic three, plus the Civ config. The basic, 4 factions, I suppose you could call them, in the vanilla Arma Reforger. If we expand this, we could go through here and modify for this mission. Go through here, modify all the details that we want to do, point to different entity catalogs, add, remove, change, call signs, whatever other information is through here, you can go through and change, like your starting vehicles. However, if maybe you're trying to build a campaign where you got 5 missions in a row, and rather than modifying this in each single mission or copy and pasting this, what we can actually do is go through, locate the campaign, locate the faction configuration. So an example is the US_campaign.config. Locate that, override it, and modify it. That way, every time, maybe this is mission 1, your next world is mission 2, 3, etc. Every time you modify this faction configuration, it will automatically propagate into your faction manager under here. Or you could just click and drag it if you have your own custom one, and you can drop it in here as well. That also works. So maybe you want to add, you want these 4 factions, and then you want to add a mod faction, so RHS, you hit the plus, say SCR campaign faction, you would locate your faction in here. I don't have RHS added, but let's just locate another vanilla faction. Look at this one, dummy. You click and drag it and then drop it into, why don't let me drop it in there? Maybe there's something wrong with that one. Oh, sorry, clicking on the wrong one, got to override it. There you go. So dropping one in here, you can drop in and you can override. Let's set another one. Let's drag this in here. There we go. So that's basically how you would add other factions to your scenario. I'm not wanting that, so I'm just going to Control Z and clear all those. Yep, sweet. Okay, so as I was mentioning previously, rather than modifying each one of these every time you create a mission or a new world within your overall mod, we'll locate this. So we'll locate the US_campaign config, and we'll override that configuration. So where is it? Here we go. So if we go in here to Arma Reforger, so we can search it up here in the search bar. So US_campaign, and there it is, campaign.config. However, I kind of prefer to navigate it to it manually, just to make sure A, I'm understanding what I'm doing, and B, I'm overriding the right one or modifying the right one. So this is what I'm looking for, US_campaign.config. So I'm just going to right click and I'm going to go override in the flowchart video project. Here's the override now, as you can see down the bottom left here. Let me just minimize that. So here it is. I'll double click on here. So I've just overridden this faction configuration. Now we're going to have all these other entity catalogs and other different bits of information all in here, which we can now manipulate. And if we manipulate and modify, so because I've overridden this here, it will automatically do it into our faction manager as well. So in here, let's go from the top. So the icon, for example, did I put that in here? I didn't really name it correctly. Actually, no, I didn't put the icon here, but example, faction flag material. That are these here. So faction flag material. If we follow the magnifying glass, it points to where it's come from. So this here, this is your EMAT. which is this here. And inside that, you have a BCR. This EDDS file points to this EMAT. So I'm going to right click on here, override. Here it is. I'm just going to double click on it. So this BCR map, so if you want to change your faction's flag, you can replace this. So this is what it's originally pointing to. Gives you a bit of a template, tells you some sizing. I do have a video on changing or overriding these faction flags, so I'm not going to go into detail on that. You can watch that video if you're interested in that. But as you can see, let me just go back. This here, being this BCR map EDDS file, here flows into here, which then basically puts the EDDS file onto this sphere, and then that flows into this faction flag material. So you override one, you can then modify and kind of see how it's flowing through. So here flows into the faction flag material, which then goes up into your faction config. The same principle works for the faction flag, the icon as well. I think that's just a single icon though, EDDS file. Moving down to the entity catalogs. Hopefully I'm explaining this okay and it's making sense. I try to think of different ways to try to explain this, and I thought the flowchart was probably the easiest way. So inside the entity catalogs, we have a few different subsections. So we have characters, expand that. We have an entity entry list, and then we also have a multi-list as well. Here's that campaign _US _player. So that's the one you want to change for your default loadout. We have all these different entities here. Different prefabs, sorry. The same goes for all the other entity catalogs here. Vehicles, again, it's another multi-list, and you have all the different vehicles that are available for this faction in here. I still have all these expanded. I'm pretty sure in another video I still had all these open. Must remember from last time you modified it from ages ago. Anyway, vehicles, so groups, something you'll need to look at modifying if you're going to be doing PvE. If you want to modify the rifle squad. So items, the next big one. So your arsenal, everything related to your arsenal. And then your supply container, which is not used at the moment. So you could go through and modify this in here. Okay, so we could go in here, disable this. We could add, let's add another item. That probably goes right down the end. Yep, no prefab. We could add our own little, let's look for something as an example. We could add this truck in here, and then we can go through and add some more information. Oh, not an arsenal item. We could go through, add the rest of the entity data list and modify this entity catalog basically in here. However, I personally don't do it that way. I leave the faction catalog config as it is for the entity catalog relation. So let me just Control Z and change that back. Is it undoing it for me? Yep, sweep back to what it was. I know, one more. I've got something disabled in there. No, it doesn't matter. Okay, so I would only, in the faction configuration, I would only modify your names, your flags, and that bit of information. If you want to change your radio encryption, you could change, where is it? Your call sign information. Again, I have kind of a video on that in relation to custom patches that goes into some of this call sign information. I would change maybe your other base call signs. This is like your capture points, what they're called. So you remember here, like Point, Alabama, Alaska, etc. That's where these come from. And any of these other ones here I'd modify. So your starting vehicles. So I'm just jumping ahead slightly. Starting vehicles. So they come from your vehicle prefabs. Inside your vehicle prefabs, you have like your rank requirements and supply cost. So let's jump to that quickly. What we've got here. So one of these starting vehicles here, the M923A1. If I click on this, it goes to the prefab. I'm just going to right click and override so that I can go inside and modify it. Right click, I'm going to edit prefab. So inside here, so as I mentioned, where are we? Starting vehicles. Inside the prefab, again, like anything, there's lots of components that do lots of different basically features. So fuel manager, impact effect components. If you don't know what they are, don't touch them unless you're just bucking around and trying to learn through a bit of reverse engineering, then go for it. But otherwise, what you're really wanting to modify in here is maybe your rank requirements and supply cost. So this here, the SCR editable vehicle component, click on that and scroll down. So here, your campaign budget type, this is how much it's going to cost. This one actually doesn't have a faction, a rank requirement. So let me just click on that. So props. Where are we? So these are different rank requirements. So maybe we need it corporal. So rank private's 1, rank corporal's 2. So we need to make sure we put the value in here being 2 to match that, and etc. as you go down. So say you modify that, you save that. That information now goes into your prefab. It's obviously saved in your prefab. It then flows through into wherever that's going to. So whether it's your vehicle entity catalog or your starting vehicles back in here. So that is now modified the information, though the supply cost and rank in relation to that particular vehicle, wherever it is. And then also this here, that starting vehicle. Again, you can choose whatever vehicles you want to start with. If you want a helicopter be available to start with, you would just click and drag it straight into here. Okay, so let's jump into the entity catalogs now, which is where a lot of people will spend a fair bit of their time. So the entity catalogs, rather than, like I mentioned before, you could go through here and modify each one of these, add your vehicles all in here, modify. But in my personal opinion, it is recommended to modify the vehicle, in this case, the vehicle entity catalog itself. So up the top left, Arma Reforger, configs, entity catalogs, US. These catalogs here, these configurations, all line up with these here. Sorry, all line up with these. So character, group, inventory, etc. So that's where these all line up. So vehicles, for example, well, actually no, do items. Inventory items, entity catalog. I'm going to right click on this and go override. Here's my new overridden configuration, which is located in Flowchart project configs entity catalog US. So it automatically generated these folders. If I double click on this now, here it is. So it is going to have just all the items that are in there by default. So it's got all these items in here, and they're all going to be throughout whatever the category is. So now I can go in here, maybe I don't want handguns on the server, maybe I don't want MGs, or I'm adding a new mod and I want to add RHS weapons or WCS weapons or whatever faction mod or mod you're using. You can go through and add, why did I just do that? Oh no. Click down here, let's add a new one, entity catalog. I can go through, locate the prefab in the resource browser here, click and drag it. Let's just demonstrate that. So pretend this is the prefab that, I don't know, M27 from RHS. I would click on here, drag it into here, and then I would go through and set some of the entity data information, arsenal item, and whatever the other one is, I can't remember off the top of my head. Let's expand this. What does it need? Oh no, it's just the arsenal data. So yeah, you just click and drag it. Once you're done, obviously Control S to save it. Saved. This now, whatever I've done in here will automatically update into here. So you may need to close this down and I should have located that first. Configurations. Nope, that's the one looking for factions. So that will auto-populate in here. What did I add? Was it a weapon? So I added this other launcher. So as you can see, this other launcher is now automatically in here in the US_campaign configuration. So let's have a look on this flowchart. So entity catalog. So my item prefabs, whatever it is, gets dragged into your entity catalog. So item entity catalog being your arsenal. As long as you've overridden it, it will then now appear up in here in your faction configuration. And again, if you've overridden that, so it's flowing through here into your faction config, and now will end up in your faction manager. So when you hit play, when you load on your server, it is now available in that US faction in their arsenal, as long as you've done it correctly, that is. However, maybe you want to make your own entity catalog. Again, I have a video completely on that, but let's just quickly create an entity catalog. Oh, I'm in the wrong spot. Entity catalog, I know. Let's go config file. What's it called? Inventory items underscore, I'm just going to call it ECF entity catalog underscore US underscore TPM, so I can always quickly find it. This is a multi-list. So entity catalog multi-list. Here it is here. I double click on it. Kind of sucks, but it's all empty. So in here, we need to go to item. And now you can kind of reference back to the original to get a bit of information on how it was set up, if you're not sure. So they go to multi-list, and then each slide, like weapons. So you can go through here, add, change this to weapons. Or maybe you want to be a bit more OCD about it. You want to like weapons, RHS. Let's add another one. Weapons, WCS, etc. Uniforms, backpacks, however you want to do it. And let's just locate a prefab. Okay, so I'm in here. I want to add, pretend this is an RHS weapon. So here's my entity. So under weapons, RHS multi-list, I want to add another entity catalog, prefab, click and drag. Make sure I've set it up correctly. Arsenal item, it's in rifle, it's, what's it, a weapon, cost, any other display data. If you're not sure what information to put in here, just reference back to what's in here for vanilla. It will give you a bit of information of what you need to add. So you might have a base rifle, then have different variants. So weapon variant. Okay, so say I've gone through, I've added everything I want to this entity catalog, and it's now good to go for my items. If I wanted to, rather than, so as previously I overrode the original entity catalog, the US inventory items underscore entity catalog underscore US.config, and that gave me this information. But maybe I don't want this information. I wanted to, like I said, I've just created this new prefab, a new config, sorry, and I want to use that one instead. So what I can do is I can click now, here's my config I've just created, click and drag it, throw it in here, and you can see now, why did that not bring in the right one? Did I click and drag the wrong one? Let me just save that, close that, let's see if I just stuff that up. Great demonstration. I'm in the wrong one completely. Hold on. Bear with me. Let's go to the override one. Yeah, sweet. Didn't stuff it up. It's good to know. I kind of know what I'm talking about to a certain degree. So like I just said, can I just locate from here? Nope. Where is it? Just here. So I can just click and drag whatever the entity catalog is that I've set up and straight into here. So now that entity catalog, as per the flowchart, I've modified, I've got the items that I want. Where's entity catalog? Arsenal. I've got all the items in my entity catalog. I'll put them into my entity catalog. I've now clicked and dragged it into my override. That override now is going to be pushed across to my faction manager. And in that faction manager, if all is done correctly, it should just have my one rifle that I've put in there. Let's have a look. US campaign. Item, or one item. See RHS, one item. And it's the M16. So that is now proof that I did stuff it up. And that this here, that item inventory, inventory items, entity catalog, US TPM, which is the one that I created from scratch. From here, put my own prefabs in there, from whatever mods I want in there, whatever items, is then gone into my overridden faction configuration. And then from there, that is now pushed across into my faction manager. So then in game, I will have unfortunately just that one weapon at this stage. So that same concept works for every single one of these entity catalogs, where you can override or you can create a new one, drag your prefabs in, create your new entity catalog, drag that up into your faction config, do whatever other modification in there. If you've overridden the faction config, it will end up in your faction manager. If you haven't overridden the faction config and you've created a new faction config from scratch, so SCR campaign faction, let me just navigate to file. So here, if I right click, go config US underscore campaign underscore TPM, this faction something or other, SCR campaign faction. So in here, it's completely blank. I could go in here, add whatever I want in here. US is the faction key. Create my faction from scratch, whether that's using pre-existing prefabs, the vanilla US stuff, another faction, another mod, or their entity catalogs. So not their entity catalogs, or their prefabs, their assets. I can push it onto here, take into consideration licensing agreements and whatnot. Put all the information in here. Once I've done that, saved that, I could go into here, into my world editor, inside my campaign, inside my mission, in the campaign faction manager. This is where I could create a new SCR campaign faction. And I could click and drag this, the new faction configuration, straight into here. And this will now propagate or populate, whatever the correct terminology is, with all the information that is from that configuration. So again, what I just did is, rather than overriding the faction configuration, the default vanilla one, so US underscore campaign.config, I created my own configuration, and I can fill it up with all the different entity catalogs. You could create your own entity catalogs. You could use a previous entity catalogs, another mod's catalogs, so RHS's entity catalogs. Put it into the faction catalog, faction config, then point it to the faction manager like I just did then over here by creating or adding a new faction, dragged it across, and then it populates with all the information. Obviously this is empty, so it's not going to put the information in there. You want to make sure if you're going to play as this faction, is playables ticked, show it welcome screen if non-playable, if you want that ticked or not ticked, is a military, so you probably want at least those two ticked if you want to play it, unless it's like an enemy faction, is military, so that other AI, it tells you there, is this a military faction? This affects AI functionality related to combat. If it's a civilian faction, it's unticked, so they're not going to just shoot the civilians. Well, you'd hope not anyway. I don't want any war crimes going on. Okay, let's go back to my flowchart. So again, the same concept goes for every single one of the entity catalogs. We talked about these defender groups, base building HQ. Let's talk about those quickly. So they're in your faction configuration. Scrolling down to the bottom, so your defender groups, that's kind of what just spawns in just to defend. You know, like the FIA always have a set defending group. That are these here. So if I click the magnifying glass, it goes to this group here. I'm just going to right click and override. Doing that for the purpose of going in here and editing it. Edit prefab. Oh yeah, save that. When you have more than one item in a prefab, like multiple different characters, then they're not going to appear on the screen. So we're just looking at this defenders group. So that comes from a group prefab, which is the group underscore defenders underscore US in this example. And from there you have all your different character prefabs. So you might have 10 different, I spelled rifleman wrong there. You may have 10 different types of prefabs, so rifleman, medic, grenade launcher, squad leader, etc. Inside this group prefab. That group prefab goes into the defenders group slot on your faction config, and then that flows through into your faction manager. So as you can see here, this is the, it's called group underscore US underscore defenders prefab. The unit prefab slot here, you can see it's made up of these AI characters. So now if I go here, I can modify this. I could override it. So if I override, I can then go in here and edit it. And then I go through the same process as before. I can go through and change the weapons, change what's in the inventory, change what uniforms they're wearing. So that kind of comes from up here. So let me explain that again. So you can modify your character prefab with all the different bits and pieces, uniforms, weapons, ammo, miscellaneous items. That flows into your character, obviously a character prefab. That then goes into your group prefabs, or in this case, this defender group. That also goes into either your group entity catalog or your defenders group. And then that goes up into your faction config, sorry, say conflict, I think. What else we got down here? Base building HQ. Did I have that in here? Yes, I did. So the HQ prefabs is this here. Double click on that. There's your HQ prefab. So that's the starting HQ, the MOB that you have within the conflict game mode. So you can go in here, again, override. Let's go into my project. I'm going to right click and go edit prefabs in here. Now we can start to muck around with the way it looks. We could change, I don't know, whatever you want to change. You could add more stuff in, you could take stuff out, you could put sandbags around it, you can start to modify it. Something that I want to do, just have not had the time. Obviously you can set a faction affiliation, being this one's US. What else we got in here? A few different traits that it does. So it's a spawn point, it's a service HQ, base management. So it's a few different traits there. It's obviously faction assigned, ordered labeled to US. It's goes into the slot prefab of so editable underscore slot flat small.et. So that's all the information related to that HQ. So again, you can modify that. You could do whatever you want with it. That goes into base building HQ, which was down here. And then that will flow into your game where what you spawn, where you start at the conflict scenario will be whatever you've modified in here. Okay, what else do we? So hopefully that makes sense. It's probably the best way I could try to explain it. Hopefully again, I'm not sure if I mentioned earlier, but I'll put a link in the description where you can bring this up and have a look at it yourself. If this is using Draw.io, so if you have a Google account or whatever account you can create on Draw.io, you should be able to go in and copy this or download this file. It won't look exactly like this because my preferences are black background and these different colors associated to what I'm trying to show. I can probably, if you want a screenshot of just this, I can send it to you as well. Just hit me up on Discord, search TPM in the Arma Discord, and I'm happy to send you a copy. Okay, so what else have we done? We've done the vehicles, entity catalogs. I'm pretty sure, hopefully it makes sense what I'll try to explain. What we got here? Also, mission header. Let's have a look at the mission header. Is there anything on this side? No, we kind of covered that stuff. Mission header. So when you go through let me just close all these. When you go in the world editor, you're going into your game setup. You run the plugin to generate the managers that are required. It asks you if you want to generate a mission header as well. So in here, it creates this missions folder, it then creates this your configuration file, which is your mission header. As you can see up here, mission header campaign. So this is where you start to put in information related to the mission. So whatever you want to call it, who the author is, whatever your name is. I don't put anything in the path. Description, but the description about the mission itself. So icons, I think I put these in the flowchart. Not that I really needed to. So these need to be changed from the default. So these preview image, loading screen, icon, flow into your mission header, which then goes into basically what you need to select in the world, in your server to be able to play this mission. So these icons need to be changed. You could figure out what size they need to be by following the magnifying glass. Double click on the EDDS file. So 1024 by 512 is the height. In Photoshop, create a new project, call it resolution 1024 by 512. Upload it into here and then point to it. Basically click and drag it across like we've done with some previous items. Placeholder, sorry, loading screen. These can be the same again. Double check to see. So they need to be 1920 by 1200 is the recommended sizes. So change those and go through and modify accordingly. If you don't want AI to spawn, you want this purely PvP, just untick these ones here. Actually, one thing I kind of forgot to mention is that, where is it? The prefab for the HQ is an E underscore. So if you use the E underscore prefabs, let me just go to it. So it makes sense. So I'm jumping a bit over the place here, but I just don't want to forget it. This E underscore headquarters here, if you just place down the one that's called headquarters underscore s etc.et, that will be a fixed item that you can't move around in GM. If you use this E underscore one, the actual prefab you'll be able to move around as GM. So just something to be wary of. And the color is usually different as well. So you can see there's a different color here as opposed to what we got. See the different colors down the bottom here. So different prefabs. These prefabs here, the E underscore ones, so the edible ones, need to be placed if you want to be able to move it around in GM. Anyway, so jump back to the mission header. Once you've configured all this basically and saved it, you've gone to publish, you publish it to the workshop. You need that mission header because the mission header itself, let me bring it up. Come on. The mission header itself, one of my scenarios. That's not what I needed. This one here is what this is pointing to. So that name there is the mission header. So this is I suppose your mod ID, your mods GUID. Then, no, sorry, that's not the mods GUID. It's pointing, the mod GUID is this information here. It then flows through into your scenario ID, which points to this mission here, our missions folder, which is this folder here. Then it points to the name of the configuration, which is this here. So hopefully that makes sense. Goes to like your mission, your GUID of your, I'm not 100% sure what that GUID is. It's probably just the GUID overall for this, but if you know, leave it in the comments below. Yep, so it points to your mission folder. It could be a different name for your mission folder. Maybe you have it as, I really don't know, dropkick. The folder's called dropkick / and then you point to your configuration. Theoretically that'll work, but if it doesn't work, just call it missions, just in case Arma needs a folder called missions, considering since that's what it generates. I'm not sure why I said dropkick. That was just the first thing that popped into my head. Anyway, let's go back to the flowchart. I think that covers off on everything that I wanted to show you. There's a fair bit of information there. Again, this is the only basics, just trying to explain some of the common questions, the frequently asked questions, I suppose you call it, that I'm getting coming through. People not quite understanding how this stuff links together. So your prefabs, so your items, again, suppose these are prefabs as well, of uniforms, weapons going to characters. They go into your entities, or your items go into your entity catalogs. From there, they go into your faction configuration. That flows into your faction manager. And then when you hit play, it provides the game experience of whatever you're trying to set up. So hopefully that makes sense. Again, if you do have questions, leave it below. I'll try to answer as many questions as I can as possible. You're welcome to DM me, hit me up on the Arma Discord, just search TPM, and you should see the same icon that I always have floating around. Can't really see at the top right there. Yeah, so I appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. Hopefully it made sense, and yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching and enjoy the rest of your day. Cheers.